Well, this is a big hello to the global Intuiface community. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. This is Jeff Besson with Intuiface. I am your host for today. The main presenter for today's session is Sebastian Meunier. Joining me, he's our Senior Customer Success Manager. If you've been with Intuiface at all, you know Seb. I don't have to introduce him. Today, we're going to introduce you to our latest reference design, which we call Browse and Select. Browse and Select is our latest reference design, which we launched. Technically, I think the first ones came out in late March. Some of you are probably aware. If I may, let me briefly define these for you once again. A reference design, because Wikipedia does a perfectly good job. A reference design is a technical blueprint of a system that is intended for others to copy. Here's the story. We have been brought throughout the history of Intuiface, people have approached us with requests, the types of projects they would like to create with Intuiface, and there are themes to these requests. And we thought that maybe it's a good idea to capture some of these frequent requests as a framework, to pre-build a framework, to wrap a sample experience around that framework, and heavily document that framework so you, any agency, any integrator, an in-house creative team can take it, adapt it, and use it for their own purposes. This is an idea we toyed with for a while. And then the pandemic hit. Two very specific scenarios occurred over and over again. And we said, okay, we need to tackle these things first, which is what we did. As I said, back starting in late March, we introduced entrance flow management and multi-mode experiences. These were the two first reference designs. Entrance flow management, we ran a webinar about this a few weeks ago, concerns this notion of monitoring traffic in and out of a physical location, making sure that you never meet or exceed the capacity for that building. You've seen this everywhere, and we've provided you with a framework and a sample experience that works out of the box, but that you can then customize for your own needs. The other reference design we already launched is called multi-mode experience. This is a multi-mode interactive application enabling you to both offer touch and touch alternatives for interacting with a kiosk. This sample experience was in a retail context, that's sort of a drink recommendation kiosk, but the general idea of the framework of the reference design was to give you an idea of how to combine multiple types of interactivity in the same experience. So the first two reference designs were inspired by the pandemic. There are, of course, lots of reference design ideas that are not relevant to the pandemic. They're relevant all the time, which brings us to Browse and Select. So this is the first reference design we're launching that is not influenced directly by the horrible pandemic we find ourselves in. This is the well understood scenario of browsing a product catalog, pulling up details after filtering, choosing from related items, adding those items to some kind of cart, and then exporting the contents of that cart in one of a variety of ways. It could be ordering a meal, purchasing a product, sending an email, sending it to a printer, lots of things you can possibly do with that output. It's a classic scenario you might find on an interactive kiosk. And we have built a reference design that exemplifies this approach. Certainly retail is the best way to think about it, and there is a retail sample experience that you can download today that implements this entire scenario, including a shopping cart, which is a very frequent request. We built a second experience though, so unlike the typical reference design with one sample, this one actually has two. There's a retail example which riffs on our DIY experience already in the marketplace. And there's a second one, which is a QSR digital menu, quick service restaurant, presenting restaurant goers with food items. They pick the items they want and then submit their order. Conceptually, it's the same idea. Different intent, different audience, different environment, but ultimately the same idea. So all of these features of Browse and Select are exemplified by these two sample experiences, and they are heavily documented, as always, with workflow diagrams and help center articles, so you can totally customize them and make them your own. So with that introduction, I'm going to turn things over to Seb, who's going to walk you through step by step how the reference design is structured and how we've implemented them in the two sample experiences. So Seb, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Hi, this is Seb, and today I'm going to walk you through our new reference design to browse and select. This new reference design comes with two examples, and you will be able to find them directly in the marketplace. Again, I'm using the Health Center article as the reference. We're going to have a look at this article first, and then we'll dive into Composer to learn more about these two. So you have the links here in the introduction to the first one, which is retail-oriented, DIY based. You can see it looks a lot like an existing example, which we remodeled a little bit to make it easier to be able to reuse it for your own needs. So this first one will be on the landscape format, while the second one, oriented for QSR, quick service restaurants, like a digital menu, will be on the portrait mode. Let's have a look at the experience structure itself. So first, the generic structure, but not one or the other, and then we have a look at the details. This reference design is about browsing and selecting products, items among a catalog. This is usually for a public usage in a store, so you would definitely need an attract screen, a video loop, some looping images to explain people, hey, something's available on the kiosk, please come closer and touch the screen to start. Or use any other interaction mode, as you may have seen in the other reference designs we have posted on our website. So the story starts here on the attract screen. When you start, you get to the catalog. The catalog will basically have two main purposes. The first one will be to display the products to enable the user to browse the products, and then probably to filter these products by at least categories and maybe additional filters, again, depending on how many products are you presenting on the kiosk and what is the real purpose of the kiosk. Is it an endless sale kind of thing to display products you don't have available in store, or is it to display technical information about some complex products you're trying to sell in the store? This really depends on the environment and the kind of products we are talking about. But in the end, the story is usually always the same. You have a list of products, you pick one of them, and you go and look at the details for this product. From this details view, you will be able to, well, first see the details, all the specification, characteristics, again, depending on if it's a paint bucket, maybe how much coverage can you do? Can you paint with one bucket, and how many buckets do you need to paint your whole house? Or if it's a burger, what are the ingredients within the burger? From this page, you will be able to add the product to the cart, maybe see some related products like cross-selling feature, and add these products as well to the cart to your shopping list. Which brings us to the last scene, being the shopping list. Between the details and the catalog, you might go back and forth to make your whole list, your whole order, and then again finish into this shopping list scene to see a summary of your list, adjust the quantities, maybe remove some products. If you shop like I do on Amazon, I had 4 different products, and in the end, in the shopping list, I just keep the one I really want, and I could just remove the other ones. And then with this list, you can export this selection. And we try to be as generic as possible with this export term, really depending on what is the purpose of the kiosk, of the experience. In the samples you will find in the marketplace, you will have these two export methods. The first one, which is the one you may know already, is about sharing this as an email, meaning you can, if you're looking for remodeling your kitchen and you're looking for ideas and you want to make sure that you're taking the right decision on all the different options and modules you may want to buy, you can make this list, go back to your house with the list on as an email, think about it a bit more before actually doing the purchase. Or it could also be sending this list as a JSON or XML file to whatever third-party POS system is on the backend system. For example, in the QSR, you might want to send this list, which actually we would call an order in this case, to the kitchen. So that would send this order as the kitchen. If you enter your email, you might get your receipt directly as an email as well. The dotted lines you have on the export side here, and at the top, I'm going to talk about the barcode scanner right after this. These are the optional modules, some ideas about how you can enhance this reference design, enhance this shopping list, again, depending on your need and your usage. You could export this list as a QR code and encode all the information so that someone can retrieve the information on a QR code, maybe a waiter scanning the code that you have generated from the device you have to make your menu, or more generally speaking, on the POS or a printer or a payment terminal system. That's for the output side. On the input side as well, especially in case of an endless aisle kind of scenario where you are inside the store, you have real products and you have a product with you, you may want to scan this product using the barcode scanner on the kiosk to get some detailed information about this product, see what are the other colors, the other sizes. If we are in a garment store, maybe you want the same shirt but a different size. Is it available in the store? And you might want to use the scanner to that. So in this webinar, we are going to see how to add this barcode scanner. And then we're going to see from the reference designs we have put in the marketplace, how to transform them, how to change the data, how to change the catalog from the retail one, the DIY paint buckets, into the QSR. That should give you some ideas about if you download these experiences from the marketplace, how can you work with them? How can you make these experiences your own and answer the needs of your customers? If we scroll down a bit in the article, you will see that this same diagram here with the 4 white boxes will be applied in the same way for the paint buckets, the DIY. Here with our attract scene, we have a little swap collection with rotating images, the catalog with the categories at the top and the list of products, product details with the related products on the side, and then the shopping list. And if we move to the QSR version, which you can also download in the marketplace, in the end, except it's a portrait one, and I'm going to show you in the webinar how to transform a landscape experience into a portrait one, it's the same structure. You have an attract screen with some images, maybe you could put a video if you prefer, the catalog where you have categories to filter, a list of products, and here we switch from an horizontal asset flow into a vertical asset grid, but in the end, it is a collection with a data feed. Product details, again, reorganized to fit the portrait format of the screen, and the shopping list with the export functions. I will let you have a deeper look at the Help Center article. We also talk about the catalog data. In this case, we decided to use an Excel file because it's simpler to share on the marketplace and for you to edit and make it your own. Obviously, you can replace this by any web service-based data source using the API Explorer, something like Airtable or your own CMS or your customer's CMS, or a real database using a custom interface set. That will be the input, and we're going to see how to do that. The shopping list would be I like to say that, the brain of the experience, the brain of the system. That would be the core interface asset we are going to use. It is a custom one, which we created for these experiences, actually, which we modified from the existing experiences, and this one will be published on GitHub as well. It is written in JavaScript, no need to compile anything. You can easily edit it, add your own properties if you need more specific properties for your items in the list, like maybe a color or a size, and then enhance, create new ways of exporting the data if you want to connect this to a POS, for example. And last little section about the analytics. As usual, this reference design, we want to show what is the return on investment for the end customer. What kind of data can you get from such experiences? Okay, so here is the browse and select the DIY version, the DIY example you can download on the marketplace. Remember the diagram we just had a look at? We are going to first have a quick look at the experience itself, how it's built, and then we will try to modify it to customize it to our own needs. So this experience has the 4 scenes we were talking about. The attract scene, the catalog where you can browse and filter the list of products, the product details to consult the details of one product, maybe the related products, and then the shopping list. The attract screen, nothing fancy, swap collection, some images, you can customize this one as usual. That's where you come back when you have an activity timer at the experience level. So again, nothing unusual. Going into the catalog, this is where we have our categories. first level of categories, and then our products, these atmosphere rows, and then the paint products. This is where, in this example, we are using an Excel file as a data feed. And you will see when we try to change this DIY example into a QSR, a quick service restaurant menu, how it can be easy if you have the same kind of structure, the same architecture, one level of categories and one level of products. If you need to add more, of course, feel free to update this scene to add new additional collections. Maybe you have a category one and then subcategory kind of filters. The categories and products are listed here in this Excel file. And basically, when you click on one of the categories here, you have in trigger what we call an action on the products list that will add a filter based on the category which has been clicked. Same thing on the products. When you have the little view buttons here, which is hidden and which is showed when the object is moved into focus, we have a trigger, and let me open this one, which actually is going to call a filter, to apply a filter on the list of products on using the ID of the product and making sure we only keep the products where the ID is equal to the ID we just clicked on. So making sure we have only one single remaining item after this filter has been applied. We apply the same kind of filter on the related products. We're going to see that in the next scene. So let's go to the product details. Because we've been applying this filter on the products list, an easy way to display the result of this filtering is to have all the text, images, all the assets here bound to the row number one of your data feed. And this is really true when you use Excel as a data source in Intuiface, where it makes things a little bit easier. You don't have to rely on filtering APIs on your backend system. So because here this text is bound to the item number one, now I'm seeing the first product in my list. And then at runtime in play mode, I will apply some filters. This item number one will be maybe the red one or the blue one, depending on the one we selected in the previous scene, in the catalog scene. The real key in this scene, right? I'm not going to go into the details of everything. I just want to talk about this add to shopping list button. That's the most important thing in the scene for you to understand. This is what makes the link between the data source you're using, Excel, Airtable, any CMS, any web service-based database you may have, and the shopping list interface asset, which will handle the selection, the list of items which are selected by the user. So if we have a look at the trigger and actions on this button, you can see that when we click on this add to shopping list button, we are calling one single action actually on the shopping list, which is the add item. Sounds pretty easy. And here we are copying, we are duplicating the data from the data source, again, maybe Excel or anything else, into this shopping list, this list item structure. The list item, and we could have a look at the JavaScript maybe a bit later, has some predefined properties which should be generic enough for you to handle any kind of items. ID, name, description, image, price, quantity. If you need to add some specific properties, this is where you will have to update, enhance this JavaScript interface asset yourself by adding new properties and adding the little bits of code of JavaScript to handle these new properties. So in here, we have all the properties bound to our Excel file. So basically from the Excel file, the ID will go into the item ID, name goes to name, etc. That's a matching game. And that's it. That's how you move, or I should say you copy the data from the data source, the Excel, into the shopping list. And the same goes for the related products. Let's have a look at the shopping list now. Well, this is empty, and because we have the list of items, but of course, by definition, by default, the list is empty, right? And we will see that, and we will use that when we're going to change the DIY into the QSR. But this shopping list item has a really useful property, which is a second data feed, right? So look here what I'm selecting. I am selecting the data feed itself, not a data template, really the data feed. And if we look into the available data feed or data sources, in the shopping list, we have two lists. We have the real list of items, which in design mode will be always empty, but which in play mode will be um, completed, will contain all the items added by the user. And we have this design mode of shopping list. These are fake products. In the code, in the JavaScript code of this shopping list, we added some fake, I think 5 items, maybe 10, which are really easily named 1, 2, 3, 4, with a quantity of 1, 2, 3, 4, and the price, which is the sum of the price per the quantity. That enables you to easily modify the template even if the real list is empty, right? So you can design your template like this using this list. When you're done, do not forget to switch back to the original list and to save your project. All right, so that was the overview. Let's go back to our modifications. And the first one, in this DIY, let's assume you want to add a feature using a barcode scanner so that someone in the store can pick up a paint bucket and want to get more information about this particular bucket. What's the coverage? What's the exact color? What are the colors that go with it? What are the accessories which are recommended? And then make a wish list to think at home about it and maybe decide to purchase after visiting the store. So in here, we are going to use an ELO barcode scanner. And for that, we have actually two interface sets, right? So these are custom interface sets that we wrote ourselves. We are planning to release them on GitHub as an open source code, both available on Windows and on Android. ELO barcode scanners are made to be mounted on their screens and are really easy to integrate with their screens. Right now here on my machine, I still have two separate interface sets, one in .NET for Windows, one in JavaScript for Android. I'm going to do the demo on Windows today. So I'm going to add this one here to my project. So we have our barcode scanner. We have some properties. It's actually using a COM port, a serial port. On my machine, I checked and it's going to become 8. This is something that would need to be configured at some point when doing the installation on the real device. So remember the diagram we had. We want to go from either the attract screen or the catalog directly to the product details when we scan a code. But we need to know which code corresponds to which product. So we need to have this information at the database level in our data source. So I'm going to open this data source in Excel right now. Let's look at our products. And right now we do have category, ID, name, description. We don't have any barcode scanner, right? So I'm going to add a new column, let's say barcode. And then I'm going to use, let's not take the first one to avoid some issues. I like usually to use the red one, which is this one. All right, and I'm going to use just the barcode I have in front of me, CRLUPP, as a test. And then, of course, with the real products, you will put the barcodes for all your database in here. But just let's use this one to see how it goes. I'm going to close my Excel, save it. And now we're going to have a new property available in our products, which will be the barcode here. So when we were in the catalog scene and when we were clicking on the paint bucket, we were applying a filter on the products. We are going to do the same thing, except that instead of filtering on the ID, we are going to filter on this new barcode property. So on the barcode scanner, let's add a trigger. We're going to use the code scanned trigger. And then we are going to add a filter on the products. Actually, just in case we were already looking at the details of a product and we had some filters on the ID, I'm going to first do a clear all filters. So whatever state we were in before, we're going to come with a clean database first. Let's duplicate this. Now I'm going to add a new filter. I want to add a filter on my new column barcode, and I want to see the product where the barcode equals. Let's use the binding here and look among our trigger. We have a code, the code which was just scanned. Sounds good. And then again, depending on in which scene we were in, just in case we were not already in the product details, we need to navigate to our product details with a crossfade. That sounds good. If we have a look here, when we are in the product details and we go back into the product catalog, we already have a trigger here which clears all the filters of the products list. So we will retrieve our whole list. So I think we should be good. Before going into the play mode, we may have something else to do. Let's just check the kind of actions and properties we have on this barcode scanner. So we have some properties here. We have the trigger, which we are going to use. In the actions, we do have an open connection. So it's a little bit like the Nexmosphere. You do need to call this action first to make sure that the barcode scanner is working. So on our experience, we are going to add a little timer. Let's go on the 1 second timer. So whenever we start the experience at the very beginning, we are going to call an action on our barcode scanner and open connection. All right, let's go in play mode now. So I'm going to move on something else than the red bucket just in case to show you that it's not using the one which is selected right now. That's the ELO scanner, which is not mounted on my screen, and that's my super paint bucket I will use for the test. That's my development barcode kind of thing, and I'm going to scan the code right now. There we go, we have the red bucket as expected, and if we go back to the previous scene, we still have all our products. Let's go, if I go into the mauve, the purple one, even if I'm in this scene now, if I scan again the code, it's going to change to the dark red. So whatever scene we're in, the trigger is working as expected. All right, let's move on to our second modification. This time we're going to transform this DIY experience into something more adapted to a QSR, a quick service restaurant, like a digital menu where you can build your order. The very first thing we're going to do is obviously to change the data source, all this data contained in our Excel file. We have prepared actually another file, still an Excel one. We could use a web service, but it would take a bit more time to illustrate, where actually we are using exactly the same categories, the same tabs in this Excel file, and especially the same column names. Based on that, we can switch the DIY and the paint buckets to burgers, sandwiches, sides, drinks, and all these products which are listed here with the associated images, media, what we have. So let's have a look at this data. We have a new file, we have all the pictures which go with it. Let's use this and copy this and go into our project, open file location. This is the original file which was used in the DIY sample, and we are going to paste the new files here. All right, let's see what we have in our catalog. Look at that. And by the way, before I forget, these images here, these were the old ones. Let's delete them. We don't need that anymore. So we have our new categories, our new burgers. Obviously, we need to adjust a few things on the design. The very first thing we can see, this time the image itself seems to embed the name of the category. So we can get rid of this gray rectangle and this text. All right, and then on the burger itself, we may need to adjust a few things. By the way, we are talking about a digital menu, and usually these experiences go in portrait mode. So we are going to transform this experience from a landscape one into a portrait. Let's go from the attract screen, and at some point I will put a counter. I will go into a time-lapse mode because it can take a few minutes, and we want to make this webinar the most efficient possible. So first thing, at the experience level, we are going to switch from a landscape to a portrait one. Full HD, yes. All right. If we look again in our new files, in here we do have our images. You have a new background. Let's go with a new burger background. Here, oh, you guy, in the scene, and let's use this as our experience background. And then we're going to change the canvas, go full screen. So I'm going to start my timer now. By the way, this is an Intuiface experience running in a player, in a transparent player on top of my composer. So I'm going to start this, and so you will see the real time of how long it takes me to transform the landscape into a portrait one. Here we go. All right, now let's look at our catalog and handle the header. Now let's try to make this collection easier to use on the portrait screen and switch maybe to an asset grid, vertical, and 2 columns. Right, let's move on to the product details. We actually don't need all the things about the quantity calculator we had for DIY, so we can get rid of that. And let's transform our related products into a horizontal collection. Let's handle the shopping list now. This is where we're going to use what I mentioned in the previous section, the famous design list. This is going to be really helpful to help us adjust this template to the portrait screen. And don't forget at the end to switch back to the original list items. We're good on all the static items. Now we need to handle all the dynamic items, the ones which move using triggers and actions. So we have one here in the product details when you open a related product. And then in the shopping list, we have all the pop-ups related to the emailings that need to go to the center of the screen. I usually use 540, 960, which is exactly the center of the screen to make sure the pop-up is aligned. All right, that took us 10 minutes. Let's stop the counter, go back to the attract scene and see what it looks like if we missed something. So we have a sub collection. Maybe we need to adjust a little bit the size to get the bands full screen. We have our menu, our categories. We can filter, get the burgers, the sandwiches, the sides. Let's see here, the text might not be good. We can adjust that. If we select a product, we have all the details. We can open a side, add a side to the shopping list, add the sandwich to the shopping list, go back. Let's add a dessert. Let's go with a sundae. We're good. This looks good. I can send my order. Let's go to demos@intuiface.com. If I hit send, shopping list has been sent. This text might be adjusted. Your order has been sent would sound better probably, but we're kind of good already. So the last step I want to mention is actually, you don't want to send your order by email to yourself in a DIY in a QSR, sorry, kind of experience. So from this shopping list, from your order scene, you might want to be able to export this order to a POS system to ask for the POS to handle the payment, and to the kitchen system to make sure that the kitchen is receiving the order with all the items we need to prepare. So, and this is really dependent on all the systems you're going to connect to. So what we did here in this reference design, we tried to prepare the work as much as we could. So when you do this send my order and we actually ask for the shopping list, if we look at this button here, the send button, this one right now is doing a send. Let's open the triggers and actions. It's doing a send, so it's sending an email with a body bound to the shopping list. And you see at the top here, we have a create email body. Actually, at this moment, you could call another action from the shopping list, which is the build JSON for export. This is a new action we added in this interface set. And yes, I'm going to open the JavaScript to show to you what exactly we are talking about here. So let's go into our shopping list here, do a right click, open file location, and we're going to have a look at this shopping list.js. So we open a folder here in Visual Studio Code. Remember, this is a free tool from Microsoft, which we can use easily to edit your code. You have the syntactic color, it's a pretty good one. So in this one, if we actually scroll to the bottom of this experience, you will see two main important methods. This build email body, which actually is the one already used in the DIY to build this shopping list that you can email to yourself, that the user can email to himself to retrieve his selection. And this is using a template, which actually is here in the folder. So if you look into the folder here where you do have the email template.html, you can edit this file, make it your own. The mechanism is based on placeholders. So in our build email template, we are going to look for this curly bracket header, curly bracket table lines, total price, these placeholders in the HTML, which are going to be replaced on the fly when you call the action build email body. And that will put the real information from the experience itself. All right, if we scroll down a bit more, we do have this new build JSON for export. And we kept it very simple, right? Basically, we are building an object with a list. In this list, for every single item in the list item, so in the list which was built by the user, we are writing an object with an ID, a name, a quantity, and a total price, which is basically what we put in the email that we send in the previous method, and what you can see on the screen as well in the shopping list UI. We add this as a list object, and we of course add the total price. This JSON is stored into this exported JSON property. So based on that, after you have been calling the action here, let me look at that again, calling this build JSON for export, you have on the IA itself, in addition to the list items and the design mode items, you have the email body and the exported JSON. This is the JSON that you could send through a web service using the API Explorer to your kitchen POS system, kitchen ordering system. If you need to add more properties, different properties, if you need a different kind of structure for the JSON, this is where in this method you can decide to build your own structure depending on the system, on the third-party system you're trying to connect to, and to send this information. This is true as well if you want to embed a payment terminal system. By the way, again, this QSR example is based on the LumenDay sample in the marketplace. LumenDay, they do have interface assets to handle payment, at least in the US. So if you want more information, feel free to contact them. They are listed among our partners on the website. Or you can create your own system if you want. That's it about the customization for this DIY to QSR browse and select reference design. If you're looking at the recording of this webinar, feel free to contact us from our support platform or our website. If you are right now in the live session, we are going to stop this recording and open the live Q&A session.
Thank you, recorded Seb. Very much appreciated. I'm going to hand over control to you, and we're going to open up everyone to questions. I haven't seen any questions yet, but we're certainly happy to accept some. And I have come armed with my own, Seb. So
thank you, Jeff, and hi everybody. So that's not the recorded Seb, that's the real Seb right now. You've seen the time lapse in the video and the different zooms I wanted to do in Composer. So I hope you understand why I pre-recorded the session, and it's also a bit easier to make sure that everything goes smoothly during the webinar. So there were some questions actually, and most of them were from Paolo, our dear friend. That's lots of questions about the barcode scanner. And actually for the moment, that's it. So we still have a lot of people with us today. Thanks for being here with us. If you have any questions, that's the moment. Jeff, I know you have some in the meantime.
Well, I know that the shopping cart is a big one. We've been asked about shopping carts forever. There was an interface asset that you provided and a couple other experiences, but we're really highlighting it here. And I know that it's based on some JavaScript, and not everybody writes JavaScript. So could you just cover for the folks how usable it is out of the box, what I might need to change if I want to adapt it, that sort of thing?
Sure. And right before I answer that, yes, the webinar recording will be accessible on the website. It will actually be posted. Let me go to the website here. By the way, can you see my screen? Not yet.
We do. Yep. Well, we see your browser. Yep.
That's good. So in the Learn menu, among the reference designs, that's the page for the browse and select. In the See More, starting probably tomorrow, you will see the webinar recording link available here, right around here. By the way, this page, this is where you can see the usage video, which is the example of both the retail example, the DIY one and the QSR one, as well as the link to the Help Center article and the 2 samples we provided on the marketplace. So Jeff, your question was about how can you reuse this reference design, this sample from the marketplace, and especially this shopping list interfaces that out of the box without knowing anything about the JavaScript. You can just use it as we did here, using any data feed, any product catalog you have, like the Excel files, could be a Airtable, could be whatever web services you have. As soon as the products you want to put in the list and the information you want to put in the list will fit this basic structure, this generic structure we try to keep here in this shopping list, meaning every single item will have an ID, name, image, description, a price, and a quantity. Doesn't have to have all of them, but if you have a subset of these properties, you're good to go off the shelf. If you're working on let's say a garment experience where you have clothes with colors and sizes, then yes, you might need to add 2 new properties, and this would have to be done within the JavaScript itself. The nice thing, the canvas is here. I mean, the JS file is written already, and adding 2 properties here won't be too difficult as soon as you know the basics of writing JavaScript. Oh, and now we got quite a few questions. Jeff, I'll let you drive them.
Yes. So it's a question about spreadsheets. So the question is basically, if I need to make changes to the spreadsheet, how does that work in a deployed environment? If I'm using Excel as the storage for my product catalog.
So the Excel file, once you have imported into the experience, into Composer, the Excel file is located within the project itself. So there are multiple ways of updating this file. And actually, if we go into our Excel documentation, Interface Asset Excel, how to update an already imported Excel spreadsheet for Composer, for Player for Windows, and for Player for the other platforms. So this article section should be the best answer. And I'm just putting the link in the chat right now. But basically, the 2 main ways of doing it would be first in Composer. You open your file in Excel, you edit the Excel file, you make sure everything works on your Composer machine, and then you go through the regular process of doing a file publish, and then on the player, you download the updated version. That would be one way. The other one could be to have your own, I would say, more manual system to deploy the Excel file directly within the experience. For example, if I just go, let's say my experience is running right now, and I go and open this Excel file and I change something live, and I just hit save and save the file and close the file in Excel, the player or the Composer running in play mode will automatically update the content. So let me do this right now. If I have the player running here, so it's the player, Composer's play mode, that's the same. I have my Excel file opened. If I go into the settings, we have our title here, a nice webinar title. If I close the file and hit save and wait 1, 2, oh, that's it. There you go. It's updated. So that's another way of updating the Excel directly within the machine where the player is running the experience.
And another option would be to modify the Excel spreadsheet, the master, and redeploy to multiple devices, right?
Yeah, that's the first I talked about, doing a publish. So in Composer, you do the update. Once you're here, you do a file publish, and then let's say you are an Enterprise Edition customer and you have lots of players deployed in the field. From the Share and Deploy console, you do a remote deploy of the updated experience version to all your players running in the field. That would be the nicest.
You do need an enterprise level account. That's the level of account that can do remote deployment. If you have multiple devices running the same experience, it'd be a real pain in the butt manually changing every spreadsheet. So if you anticipate needing to make changes on a fairly frequent basis, deployment would be your friend, and that would be the way to do it. If it's one machine and it's pretty local and easy to get to, then maybe it's something you can do manually, or at least remotely connect to that device and make the changes. Seb, there was a follow-on question about performance issues with Excel, which is a rat's nest, but the basic question, is there a size number of rows? How does one manage Excel spreadsheets in anticipation of doing lots of filtering to accommodate performance?
It's always the $1 million question. Performance and what performance for what device. So and I don't have the magic answer to that question. The only answer I have is test early, test often. If you're running on a $100 Android device and you have an Excel file with 100,000 lines, yes, I can answer it won't work. You will have performance issues. If you are running a 700 lines Excel file on an Intel machine, i5 or i7, you should probably be good. We don't really have metrics on that because there are lots of ways of building projects. We have our own ways of doing that. But again, we are providing samples on the marketplace. Our customers, you guys, are providing the real projects to the real end customers in the field. And I've seen projects with 20 Excel files, with 50 Excel sheets in one single experience. Would I run that on an Android tablet? No. Does it run on a Windows machine? It seems so. We have several hundred players running this experience with a lot of Excel files in it. So it really, really depends. So I don't have a generic rule. One rule which I would say, if you have several thousand lines and you try to use Excel as a real database, like a SQL database, SQL database, maybe there's something wrong, and maybe it should be a real database with a real SQL query engine and a custom interface.
Yeah, I like to refer to Excel as the poor man's database.
Yeah.
Poor man's database. It's not the rich man's database. So there's an extent to how far we can take it. But there was another question about Excel, Seb, which is about using cells to refer to something not local to the device. Can I use URIs in an Excel cell? Can I point to a Dropbox, an image on Dropbox,
Yes.
from within an Excel cell?
Yes, you can. And actually, if you go into the experience panel, and by the way, what you were saying before, I like to say Excel is the database for the non-developers. That's my vision of Excel. If you go into the marketplace and look at the Intuiface presentation, if you download this experience on your machine, you will see there is a scene called, is it Showcase or Video Showcase? And this one uses an Excel file with filters on different categories, which basically are the videos you have on a website, and there are YouTube links. So that's one way of putting a video without having to download the experience. Actually, the one you guys can download in the marketplace, this one is, I don't know, less than 100 megabytes, maybe the experience. It's a pretty small one, and you only have access to YouTube links. The one we use ourselves, you can see this one is an internal use only. This is dedicated to us, the guys at Intuiface. And this one is a gigabyte something, where all the videos are local because we have the rights to own them. We don't have the rights to distribute them. And we use them offline when we used to go on trade shows, when trade shows used to exist. So again, it's the same Excel file. We just replaced a local video path with a YouTube YouTube video path in the cell, and it just works the same way.
Thank you. The next question is about the best way to share information. Typically, there are two ways. One is to point to pre-built content, and the other is to email the actual content. So this question is not in the context of so much ordering from food, for example, or products, but picking from a set of items because you want to see those items. Do you have an opinion, Seb, about whether it's better? Do I email the PDF or do I text or email a link to the PDF? Is there any reason from an end user perspective? I think you, Ryan, are a better person to answer that than we are. It depends on the target audience and the environment and the likelihood of an internet connection and all these other sorts of things. But Seb, from an Intuiface perspective, is it better to email a PDF versus a link or that kind of?
I'll try to give an answer which is not Intuiface related, but more generic than that. And this is Ryan's question, right?
Yes.
Okay. So I have a pretty clear vision on that because I've been in front of this question quite a lot of time in the past. And the answer I give to people is, when you have to send documents to someone within your day-to-day job, what do you do with your emails? Do you attach 10 PDFs of 5 megabytes each in one single email and try to send that in an email? I'm guessing you're not. In this case, you might.
My mother does that all the time.
Yeah, at least she tries, but does it work? And so usually what you would do in this case, you would put the files in a zip or just on the Dropbox or on a WeTransfer, and then send one link to that person to download all this content. It's the same within Intuiface. I mean, we are not reinventing the email. Email addresses, even if over the last, 10, 20 years, the size of attachments increased a lot. Yes, that's true. But still, you have a limit. One of my colleagues earlier today sent me a 1.5 minute video shot on her iPhone of an experience we were testing, and the video was 600 megabytes. Would she send that to me in an email? No, won't work. So WeTransfer link or Dropbox link, that's the way to go. Regarding interface and sharing content, it's the same idea. If you do have one single brochure to send to a user because they're looking at a catalog of product and yeah, that's the one I want. That's this one and not the other ones. And you know all your PDFs are max 5 megabytes. So worst case scenario, that's one PDF, 5 megabytes in an email. Yeah, you can put it as an attachment. It's simpler. There's no link to download. The link could look weird on a mailer. It could go into the spams. So yeah, that's doable. If you're browsing, I don't know, a list of products like this one actually in the paints, and you want one brochure per product you've been selecting, and you may end up between one PDF and 10 or 15 PDFs, then no, putting this in an attachment is not the way to go. And we do have an answer to that. It's not the shopping list, it's called the document list. It is not yet on GitHub, but I'll be happy to share this with you, Ryan, and to everybody who asks about it. It's another variant of this shopping list, which when you generate the email body here, this will generate an email with the list of items you selected and with links. Now, what's the catch? How do you get the links? The main thing is within the actions and the add item. Let me open the triggers and actions panel here. In this shopping list, when you do add an item, you have here item image, which is a local path to display the image. If it's a document, maybe it's a local path to display the PDF itself. In the document list, which I have created and which I could share with you, there is a new field, an additional field, which is the web URL. So if in your database, in your Excel file, you have both the local file path, and the web URL, you can add it into the shopping list and you can use this link to build the email body. That's the way I've been recommending to several customers. I think I wrote something on community about it. I'm not sure. I know it's not yet on GitHub because the code needs to be cleaned, to be published, to go through tests and reviews, and that's why it's not published officially. But I've been using it for a while, so I can share it with you. I will take a note of that before I forget.
Yeah, I was thinking about privacy, security, speed. I mean, there's lots of variables there. It's kind of cool when you click a button on a screen, you get a text message right away and your phone dings, right? Where if you get an email, well, you got to open up your email app, you got to take a look unless you're checking for it. On the other hand, you're not texting a document, right? You wouldn't be doing that. So I think it's something you need to consider for your particular environment, what you're trying to achieve, the kind of person, the level of education, the demographics of the audience, and all these different variables. But Seb's right. You're not going to email, 100 megabytes worth of documents. That wouldn't make any sense.
Yeah. I see there was a question earlier that I didn't answer. I think it was Paulo again asking, why would I use the modified shopping cart here versus the one in the product? That's the same reason I was talking about. The code was cleaned by me and by the product team. Honestly, it's 99% the same. The only thing is we renamed it so that it says shopping list here and it says shopping list in the code and not shopping cart to avoid confusion and misunderstanding. And I added this build JSON for export method as an example to show how to build the JSON object to be used. That's the only difference. The rest of the code, that's again 90-something% the same as the one we've had over the last years.
Thank you. No more questions in the queue, but we still have a big audience. So I'll suggest take advantage of this opportunity. You have Seb Live. So if you have any other questions, preferably about Intuiface. We have one, Seb from Benton. Thank you, Benton. So if I want to update the Excel file to multiple devices in the field, if I host that file in Dropbox and create a sub.
Yeah, I know the question.
So this is about Dropbox in particular. That's the point. So this is about using Excel to point to a file in a synchronized Dropbox folder somewhere. Is that the question?
So that's about how can I deploy an Excel file without redeploying the experience and without using the publish and deploy mechanism of Intuiface. So the main mechanism, again, just to clarify, to update the Excel, the one we recommend is to go in Composer, update your Excel, publish, and then in the share and deploy, deploy the updated experience, even if it's only about updating the Excel file. Today, that is still our recommendation, our number one method. The alternatives, if, I don't know, maybe you're not an enterprise edition customer, so you can't do a remote deploy, or you want to use Dropbox because the data has to be accessible from someone who doesn't have Composer to do this publish action. So to do that, we do have an article about, let me try Excel Dropbox. Do we have a good search engine? Let's try the first result. Yes, using the Excel interface set with shared folders. That's the one. So I'm going to put this here and send it as an answer to Benton's question. So you're right, it's about using symbolic links, meaning that once you have deployed your experience on the machine, you're going to tell through Windows that, hey, the folder where Intuiface is looking for the Excel file is not really this one, but that's the one where Dropbox is synced on this player, because you have installed Dropbox with a login with a specific Dropbox account on the machine. And you're using this symbolic link to fake the synchronization between two folders, the Dropbox folder and the experience folder. All the steps are detailed into this paragraph, which is basically about making the link from the Intuiface experience name, interface set Excel folder, look into your Dropbox folder wherever it is on your machine. Just make sure you use the command in the right direction.
I mean, this is sort of implied, but this is a Windows only thing.
Yes.
Yeah.
At least we documented for Windows. I have no idea how to do a symbolic link on another platform.
Yeah, and I was looking at that warning at I forgot about this. I totally forgot we added this section. And this, I don't. Is there anything here in this warning that's unexpected, or it's pretty obvious?
Yeah, you need to make sure the bus is the same, and you need to use the MCAM link. Yeah, that's basic warnings about follow the steps properly, basically. There are other methods actually, and maybe on community. I know, Paolo, in the past you were using a third-party tool called Mirror Folder, which was, you didn't have to use this MK-link DOS commands to create this. You can have a tool that handles the synchronization between the Dropbox folder and the Interface Experience folder. I think you had to pay a license for the tool. I don't remember, that was a couple of years ago. There are multiple ways. This one is free and using the regular Windows commands.
Yeah, in fact, Raphael just shared that his understanding is MK-Link only works after a PC reboot, which, if true, limits its flexibility. But as Seb just told you, there's alternatives.
I don't think so. I mean, I've been using it, testing it myself, and I reboot my machine every 6 months. So
I'm gonna do it right now. Middle of this webinar. Very good. Anybody else? Other questions?
There was a question from Carol. Can I share a link to the experience from the demo version? I'm not sure I understand this one.
Can I share a link to the experience from the demo version? I missed that one, and yeah, let me see. Can I share?
My understanding, and Carol, let me know if I'm correct. You are currently using the free edition of Composer, and you want to share this project with someone else. If this is it, you can publish the experience from the free edition of Composer. You can share it with someone who has a free edition as well, and they can run it. You can do a share via URL as well, and they can run it. They will have the watermark as a free player. Yes, you can do that. Now, if you want them to use it in a paid player to remove the watermark, you do need to have a paid composer to do that.
Nice detective work on that one, Seb.
We have a new one. How can I create my own interface asset like shopping list? Good question. Everything is documented into these interface assets. Create your own interface asset. So this is the main article, which I will put here in the chat as the answer. And basically, that's something I didn't mention. That's true, but the interface assets mechanism in Composer are based on 4 different protocols. 2 of them, you do not need to code anything. That's Excel and the web services through the API Explorer. The 2 other ones are JavaScript for all the platforms we support and .NET, only supported on Windows machines. So when you go into this article, you will learn about the basic concepts about the notion of Intuiface descriptor file, the IFD file, which makes the link between the JavaScript or the .NET, and Composer basically describes the properties, triggers, and actions. And then you have some dedicated articles for .NET or JavaScript. So that's the main thing to start with. And I should mention that you do need to have a Composer Premier or Enterprise to be able to save an experience with a custom interface set. You can create your custom interface set with any version, including the free one, but with the free and essential, you will not be able to save an experience using such a custom interface set.
And the Chrome tools, Seb, that's specific for JavaScript interface assets?
That is specific for JavaScript. That's a good point, especially when you're working on a JavaScript interface asset. It's about the debugging tools or the developer tools, and you do have access to the Chrome Dev Tools. That's this one. That's a good resource. So you do need to be not on the player for Windows mode, but on the other mode for all the other platforms we support. And then you have a shortcut, Control-Shift-I, to open these Chrome Dev Tools as you would do on a regular web development. That's pretty helpful for the debugging and working on the JavaScript interfaces apps.
But you need to make sure Chrome has to be installed independent of Composer. So it's
and it's a bit more than that. Actually, the Chrome tools don't work anymore on this machine, and I don't know why. This is not my laptop right now I'm running on. So right now, if I hit play and I switch to play mode here, it didn't work this morning. And again, I didn't reboot the machine for what, 3-4 days on this one. Yeah, I don't have the Chrome Dev Tools, and I don't know why. We're still investigating on that. But normally you should get them. If you don't, just drop a message on our support team, and they'll be happy to help.
Very nice. Any more questions we can answer?
I forgot my water bottle. I should have taken it.
These are good. We had almost no questions.
Yeah.
So making up for it.
I'm happy to answer all the questions that came.
Yeah.
And if you have any more.
This is exactly why we hosted live. Otherwise, why make it live?
Yeah.
I am changing into my pajamas in a moment, though, unless questions.
So no more questions. Going once. Going twice.
Everybody's an expert.
Or typing a very, very long question.
Typing a long question. I don't think so. I mean, everybody, you guys know how to find us. Get in touch with support. Find us on the community. and your friendly neighborhood salesperson. So it's never too late. Seb, thank you very much for all that you've done and for the great experience you put together with Alexi. And thank you to all of you for attending. I appreciate it.
Thanks, everyone. Have a great morning, afternoon, evening, depending on where you are, and take care.
Bye, guys.